Hey guys, let's start with a very interesting pro-revenge story form. Weird_stories_here. New ownership takes over and guy goes on vacation for 2 years due to stupid new rules. A family friend was working at the same company since he was 26, up to when he was 64. When the below started, I did get his approval to retell the story, just not include anything specific, so I'm keeping it anonymous and quite general on the specific details. Part of the problem was the laws in the country increasing the retirement age from 62 to 65 when he was in his early mid-50s, and then again from 65 to 67 when he was about 62 to 63. The old owners were a family and run the business with benefits to the employees. From everything I have heard, I think they were giving an extra vacation week after every 6 years at the company. So on top of the standard 4 weeks, he had an extra 6 weeks at the time of the events. Also, people had access to 2 weeks of working home office when the job allowed them to, or an extra week off, for those that couldn't use it. So he was getting 11 weeks off each year. As a bonus, the family owners were allowing people above 55 to use their vacation time as they deserted, all at once, with about a 2 weeks notice, which was just a courtesy, according to the guy, or segmented or even not use it and pile it up for when the retirement time came. Another issue we have at our country is that when you submit retirement paperwork to the government, they take ages. So it is often the case that they may take over 2 years to calculate what to pay you and start paying you. Of course, they pay back that time, but it still is an issue. For the period they delay and calculate, you are getting only the minimum amount. But the guy had already about 44 years of experience and a bit more ahead of him as an engineer, and a well-paid one, which meant a great retirement amount. So the owners allowed for people to gather up their weeks of time off at the end of it and take 20 to 30 weeks off while submitting their retirement paperwork, so the money being paid would last them longer into the calculation period. Of course, some didn't use it, but many did. So the company gets sold because the owners saw some writing on the wall that their profiting wouldn't last more than 6 to 7 years more, and they wanted out. It was due to old age as well. New ownership, part of some Coca-Cola subsidiary, takes over and starts removing previous rules. At the guy's position, there were 3 of them, him, a second colleague, and a third one. They push out the second, fire him. And the third one has a heart attack literally a week later, RIP. They also go and dock his pay by 15% because he is making too much for a simple engineer. The 3 of them hold a patent for the machinery used on something specific, a second one on how to make that machinery, and a third one on the process of the production of a small but significant part. Old owner had allowed them to put the patents on them when they invented a new, 30% cheaper and 75% faster way of production years ago. So suddenly, he is alone on that position at 64, and the company hires 6 people for him to train on that position. At the same time, they give up to the end of the year for all the piled-up vacation time to be claimed. Notice the wording, claimed, not used. So the guy was using between 1 and 5 weeks for the past decade. So he had gathered 87 weeks of time off, including the current year, but they hadn't looked at specific cases apparently. So they get him the 6 new people to train, and they tell him that he needs to have them trained in 6 months. He still has 2.3 to 2.5 years until retirement. So he just goes and takes 87 weeks of vacation time with a 3 hours notice on a Friday evening starting the upcoming Monday. Still no advance notifying is required. They don't pay attention on it until the next Thursday when the CEO notices the 6 people sitting around all day and nobody training them. The phone calls start, then emails, then letters get added to the mix, then home visits by low-ranking secretaries and such to deliver the letters, then management visiting his home. By week 7, the CEO has visited 3 times, but the door hasn't been opened once. His mother-in-law lives literally across the street, old woman, and him and his wife are taking care of her. So most of the time they are over there and can see everybody visiting their house XD. The production is actually running on itself, but no upkeep is done on that critical part of it. Week 11, he says that line 1 out of the 2 breaks down. They start visiting his house 3 to 4 times a day. 2 weeks later, second line breaks down. He obviously has a lot of friends inside and is getting constant updates. At that point, they have only 4 weeks of backstock to keep the rest of production running. It is December, right before Christmas, and he goes in during week 13. He says he needs to take some things from his locker room, LOL, and the CEO starts yelling at him. "You are stopping your time off right now. You are coming back to work to fix everything up." So he offers to come back for 3 days under an agreement that the entire week will be returned to him to use for time off. The CEO reluctantly agrees and tries to push him also for the training. No budging, only fix things up and go on vacation again. By Saturday, everything is fixed up and even leaves a couple of basic instructions on what needs greasing every week, and he is off again. Few weeks pass. New Year has come around, and a line is broken again. He gets called back, and CEO pretends like the previous deal will be used again. He goes in for 2 days, fixes everything, explains couple more things to the team of 6, who by now have other duties, not to be sitting around all day. And when he is about to leave, the CEO says, "Tomorrow at 8 a.m. The guy says, "What?" And the CEO explains, "You could claim your time off by the end of last year. You just ended your claimed time off, so you are losing the remaining 69 weeks. The guy is furious and he just goes straight and reports the company to workers' rights. They are actually dumbfounded by the time off he has amounted, and the lady serving him calls her colleagues to listen in. They laugh their off by his story, and they actually issue a verdict the next day. It usually takes weeks, but apparently they had too much fun with this one. He is to get all of his time off, under the previous rule, for the time accrued up before the rules changed. So he has his 69 weeks, should be 70 due to him getting the one he worked on, renewed by their deal, but he lost that one. And he also has the 6 weeks from the new year. So he goes in with the verdict and gives it personally to a fuming CEO. According to the guy, steam was coming out of his ears. The CEO accepts unwillingly the deal with the guy coming in for 3 days every 5 weeks off. If he is needed during his time off, tough luck. They should work to produce backstock. A full year goes by that way, and the guy's is 66. At this point, he has been training the 6 slowly every 5 weeks, LOL, and he is on his last visit before he takes the last 5 weeks off. The CEO goes to him and delivers personally the firing notice for the first day he will be back. He plays shocked and leaves for another 5 weeks. This one is a problem because if you apply for retirement, even with half a year early less, you are losing significantly more than just that small period, and he has about 10 months ahead of him for retirement. His last 5 weeks expire, and he goes in to gather his stuff. Only a coffee cup was remaining. He knew this was coming, and he had taken everything over time. He gets an extremely big payout for the firing with no cause. Next day, he sends a cease and desist letter to the company for the use of the 3 patents. He had talked with the fired guy who had agreed with this revenge plan. He had also talked with the widow of the now dead friend and colleague as well, and had both of them on board. He had been supporting actually the widow, but he didn't say anything to anyone. I found out very recently from the other guy about it. So now the company has to stop using those machines and the method with 0 notice. All the competitors have found and built and patented their own versions of the same, and if they don't find a solution, it is going to cost 40% more and take about double time to produce the same part of the procedure of production. So they would need to double the lines if they go and use the old method while they look for a new one. After just 3 weeks of looking to license the method of one of the competitors and not getting anywhere, stock being extremely low by that point, they struck a deal with the guy. He will be an external contractor who obviously keeps the patents to his name. He will be doing the maintenance on his own, will be paid by the hour, what he was previously making on a full day, and he will be on call for maintenance while having one person there at all time for upkeep. He went and stole all 6 of the people he trained and hired them in his new company and put them to work back at that factory again, with almost double the pay they were receiving. He fully trained them very quickly, and he was now getting paid a ton. That CEO was fired for almost stopping production. The deal was struck mere hours before backstock ended. And he also cost the company a ton of money by firing that guy. At the funeral of the old owner, many of the old employees met up and told their different stories, and apparently there were 3 more similar cases with patent holders, because the old owner treated his team extremely well, but he apparently was the only one to string them on for almost 2 years by being out on vacation time and getting paid. All of them had a great laugh, including the widow of the owner and his sister, who were the other 2 partners in the factory before it got sold. It was edited to fix mistakes only. Apologies for the hard reading. Update, correction. 2 points I noticed that are not clear. The 6 people he stole from the factory to work for his new company that are then contracted back to the factory are earning what he was making when he worked at the company and was considered too much. Their salary was extremely lower, so my comment above about them Keong double is incorrect. Apparently, the factory was paying all 6 combined what the hero was making before he got that 15%. So for all of them, it was a huge pay raise. I would leave the factory as well if I received an offer for the same exact work, but an increase of about 550%. This I learned from the hero as an update. Apparently, at the time that they struck that last deal for him to work as a contractor, the backstock was 2 hours from finishing. But what was his last ace up his sleeve in negotiating was that don't forget that I need at least 3 days to fix both lines. So you already need to shut the factory down for 3 days. And every minute you delay this deal, it's another minute of the entire factory being down. Apparently, a single line couldn't produce enough for production to resume. 2 lines produce about 110 to 120% of the required thing for production to continue, so he needed to get both lines up. The factory actually shut down for almost 4 days, and those idiots didn't pay the workers for those 4 days that they were not working, which ended up a class action from over 800 workers at the Workers' Rights Office, which led to a fine and forcing the factory to pay them. And that was the last drop that made the glass overflow. The news got to management from outside the country and ended up costing the CEO his job. Here are some top comments on the post. The first one is from Zakzak. Why didn't the new owner find out who owned what before buying the company? OP replies to Zakzak. I would have put it in nuclear revenge if things had gone more wrong and he had ended up bankrupting them or STH. When I was talking with the dude, he said that he had some plans to take it that far. To start with, when he received the verdict from the Workers' Rights Bureau, he could have just given it to the CEO and he would have probably ignored it, and that was his plan. But he decided to go and stress out the importance of it being followed, because if it wasn't, he could sue and also bring so many inspections for the next years to the plant plus other things he had in mind. But he didn't actually want 800-plus people to lose their jobs, and he had spent his whole life working there. So it was also a pride/honor thing for him that the company prospers. The next comment is from consistent-ad-7444. I've heard this identical basic story told before. Old guy has a patent, or is the only one that can run the equipment where he works. New owners come in and let him go because he's old, then end up hiring him back as a contractor because no one else can run that equipment. Wow, OP took brutal revenge by disrupting the entire production unit of the company. It was only possible due to strategic planning and OP's knowledge of how to use his rights. The CEO's career and reputation were completely smashed and crushed. I would just say, don't mess with old dudes in the company and respect workers' rights. Let's now jump on the next story. It is from Adorable-Work 8442. I blew up a romance scammer's life. This one is fresh and still unfolding, but it's already hit an explosive level. Some details intentionally vague. Context: I'm a woman in my 30s with a reasonably good corporate-type job in a field with lots of room for growth, and am recently back into the dating scene after a decade. I'm kind of a would-be a 10 if she lost 30 lbs looking girl. Beautiful face if a bit chubby. but I never have issues getting a date. I'm not well off, but I'm stable and have a bit of spending money. I live in a large multicultural city, and my ex was an immigrant, so I'm open to dating people of any origin. What happened? A few weeks ago, I met a very charming man from a Latin American country only a couple years younger than me. Seemed very sweet, cuddly, intelligent, family-oriented, emotionally available, educated and in a good profession back home in his country, and had a lot in common with me. Chemistry seemed amazing inside and outside the bedroom. He was honest that he was in my country on a tourist visa, but hoping to stay. I made it clear I wouldn't be able to help him with that, but we'd have a fun summer fling while he was here. If he managed to stay or come back, only then would we consider a real relationship. Then, the other shoe dropped. A couple of weeks and 4 dates in, during a text conversation about my work, he asked me to be his sugar mommy. I initially laughed and assumed it was a joke. He kept pushing and clearly said it wasn't. Of course, feeling insulted by this, I went off on him. He maintained it as a serious ask until I hit a nerve with my complaints about how embarrassed he should be to ask me that. Then he got angry and insulted me for thinking he was serious about it. No apology for being hurtful to me. Obviously, what I did next was take screenshots and cry about it to my closest friends. I was hurt that I was fooled into thinking he liked me and that he thought I needed to pay for a man. My friends started the fuse on what happened next. One of my friends started snooping more on his online presence. Together, we found about 6 different Instagram accounts that were him using different variations of his name and different photos of himself, all uploaded in batches. On Facebook, a similar pattern, all very scammy and suspicious looking. He'd been foolish enough on one of his profiles, though, to follow and tag the employer that he was working for illegally on his tourist visa in my country. So I contacted another close friend in a local law enforcement agency that works with immigration. She looked up his file. He had a wife and daughter at home. I released the hounds after that. The friend who helped me investigate online made several group chats on multiple platforms with all of his family, immediate and extended, and friends. She released all the screenshots, as well as a rant about how shameful it was. As they started blocking her, she added more people. I found his sister's phone number. She sent her messages on there too. Everyone he knows, including his wife, know he's unfaithful and trying to take advantage of women. 30 minutes after the online bombardment started, I got a rude message from him about how I should be smart enough to know he was joking and he doesn't need to sell himself. I didn't reply. Next step? Online immigration reporting form with all the info we found. Work info, employer name and address, his home address, full name, DOB, photos, screenshots, admitting to working. Usually these reports take months to be reviewed, if at all, but I gave the file number to my law enforcement friend. 2 days later, law enforcement officers visited him at home. They found him with a phone number that was issued to a local resident. All his roommates also had numbers issued to the same person, a direct link to the employer. He received a caution for trying to scam me, a no-contact order, and a flag on his immigration file that, based on his country of origin, will likely mean he can never return, as well as a strict warning to not work without authorization. His roommates also received warnings. His employer received a visit next. They found significant proof that they'd been employing him illegally, as well as multiple other people. Their investigation is still ongoing, but so far, they are likely to receive tens of thousands in fines or possible jail time. The guy isn't getting deported because the government would have to pay for it, and proceedings take longer than his remaining visa time. But he's now upgraded from a flagged file to a multi-year ban on re-entry to my country. If he bothers me again, though, he will be deported as well. Hope he enjoys going back to his angry wife and the ridicule from everyone he knows. See you again, never. Edit. The comments on my appearance are a tongue-in-cheek way of describing how he may have viewed me and speak more to his failure to select the correct victim profile. It's not that deep and I don't really care about my appearance very much. Relax a bit, peeps. Here are some top comments on the post. The first one is from Shell Bell 4. Related unintentional pro-revenge. My bestie kept getting scammed by romance scammers, and unlike you, she's poor. She's a poor single mom working just over minimum wage. Those scammers would tell her they were sending her money and they would, only for her account to get drained a week or two later with crazy charges. She changed her banking information countless times. She had so many fraudulent charges on her accounts that the bank stopped reimbursing her. And after about a year of this nonstop nonsense, the bank finally closed her account. Without warning, they closed it and she had to scramble to get a new account, a different bank, get her direct deposit and auto pays all changed over. Well, right before the bank closed her account, the scammer wired $10,000 to her, no doubt planning to pull it back and more once she spent out of it. When her old bank settled her closed account by sending her a check, she received for $8,600 some odd dollars. It cashed, free and clear. No way for the scammer to pull it back once the bank did a hard close. So nanner boo-boo, did she learn her lesson? IDK, we'll see, but in the meantime she has some pocket change. For a change. The next comment is from, like, a living drug. What is wrong with all the people in here pissing on OP for taking down a lonely heart-scamming ring? Should she have continued to let him and the other men deceive other women as well as the government of her country? She opened up a can of whoop just trying to punish him and discovered an entire operation geared to scam people out of their money. This is wrong to you people? Yes. Asking multiple people to have the same romantic relationship with you using different names is a scam. Look at who you are rooting for. What the hell is wrong with you all? Chouette Pants replies to like a living drug. He slept with her under false pretenses. He violated her. If she is someone who has boundaries about who she allows into her life, looks for emotional connection first, etc., it's not just... It's much more than that. It's an intimate part of you that you share with someone. He was counting on her to have low self-esteem and was probably successful with multiple other accounts. But society hates women loving themselves and saying tongue-in-cheek like that because we have to literally give ourselves affirmations so we can get through the day without feeling like a troll. You go, girl? You're a 10 now. What happened to the other people was not your fault. You didn't tell them to go to his address and find them all. The revenge was really destructive. OP really destroyed romancy scammer career and family life by speaking up for herself. Scammers like him deserve it. No doubt,